A lot of people here are entrepreneurs or they're going to become entrepreneurs. So I just wanted to provide a quick summary before we dig into the topic on hand, which is my basic entrepreneurial strategies. Because I did entrepreneurship of all kinds, right? Chips, enterprise software, like Oracle and so on, and then video distribution like Tata Sky or whatever. So in all cases, the basic entrepreneurial skills that are needed are just these 8 in terms of building a company. So this is what I've kind of extracted from my own experience over 25 years of building companies, which is, an entrepreneur should always listen to the market, and no matter what he thinks, if he doesn't stop listening to the market, he's going to drive his company into the ground, right? So responsive to the market, and the more alert you are, quicker you respond, the more successful you're going to be. Now, supporting the leader who's responsive to the market, you need to have a team that can respond to the market leaders, directional changes or directional, change. So you need very fast, agile product development, they call it. So both have to work hand in glove if you're going to have a responsive product at the end of, as the market keeps on changing, to have the final product that customers can use is really the key, right? Obviously, these two things require great teamwork. If the team is not completely in sync, and typically, in big companies, sales is always fighting, shipping, manufacturing. Marketing is always fighting engineering, So basically, in an entrepreneurial situation, you don't have the luxury of having these big debates and then figuring out 3 months later as to what the right thing to do, right? So in an entrepreneurial situation, the teamwork has to be there. So the marketing, sales, engineering, customer support all need to work together to make the company successful, right? So that teamwork, and it's all based on delegating and trust that starts top down, right? These are the basic. There's nothing except competition for a start. I mean, startups have to compete. There is no choice but to compete. And unfortunately, nobody teaches you what competition means. There's no textbooks or whatever, or easy ways to learn competition. So in my particular case, one of my VPs of marketing when I was working in corporate, he said that, look, our company has to compete. I need to have marketing guys who are the best competitors in the world. So he says, I want all my marketing team to study this book. It's a small 40-page book written by this Chinese commander 2,000 years ago. And he basically never lost a fight, a war. He was fighting armies 10 times the size. He was fighting armies with different skills, different environments, but he never lost a single battle. And so he put all his experience into this little 40-page book, and it's called The Art of War. Now it's become, you go to any business bookstore, you'll find Art of War. So I would recommend, in the beginning you'll think this is crazy, how can we apply 2,000-year-old strategy? But in reality, human beings have not changed. We have just taken war from the fighting with guns to fighting with products and money and business and so on. It's just moved to a different front. So, there's a mental mind shift that you'll have to do. But if you think about it every day, you'll find lots of strategies that you'll be able to use that you can learn from this book. So it's a very good book. Then, next one is important because basically, in a startup's journey, there are more failures than successes, right? You have a better product and the customer buys your competition's product just because it's a bigger company. or he's been around, he's got more reference customers, or he's got some features that you don't have the time to use, it's a minor feature. So, you're continuously running into failures. And the point is, how you respond to failures is really the difference between whether you ultimately succeed or not. So it's all about losing the battle but not the war. So you have to make the competition lose the war. Lose the war means get out of business, right? Battle means, you try, you become better, you figure out what your weaknesses were, get ready for the next battle, right? Because there's always another customer, there's always another technology, there's always another platform, you can always go to another country and start selling. The thing is, it's not about us having the best product, it's about the customer, wanting your product, having a relationship with the customer, building a relationship with the customer. So it's all about personalizing your relationship, because ultimately it's not a company that buys the product, it's the purchasing guy buys the product, the general manager buys the product, the marketing guy buys the product. Some human being is buying the product. So you have to build a personal relationship as you go. Total transparency, the only reason is that when you look at everything, if you want people to work when you're not watching and do the right thing for you, when you're not there to manage them, only total transparency and a top-down, if it's put together, is going to make it all happen. And the last thing is, it's not a static market. You can't say, okay, this thing worked for me 2 years ago, all salespeople should use the same technique to sell. It doesn't work, because why you executed a particular sales strategy 2 years ago, it worked, you got in your 1 crore order or whatever, and it's been working for you. The world is changing, becoming, more competition's coming in, customers' needs are changing, expectations are changing, whatever. And only if your team is learning to continuously improve and adapt and bring feedback. So the team has to learn how to learn. Right? So that is it. Anyway, these are the top 8 rules which everybody has to apply to their specific situation. So let's move on to kind of the main topic for today, which is, how do you take the global market and leverage it for your success? Can you guys hear me there?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, wonderful. Okay. So globalization, as you'll see, was at the heart of my strategy. But globalization provides different parameters you can play with, right? So you have to figure out what parameter is most important and then execute on that, leverage that parameter and make it work for you, to the detriment of your competition or for providing better service to your customer or whatever. So the biggest market for chipsets, Opti used to make PC chipsets for putting on the motherboard, right? And the biggest market was US, right? HP was there, Compaq was there, IBM was there, Dell was there, Gateway was there. All the big computer manufacturers were in the US. So, and we decided to enter the chipset market. And remember, I worked at Intel for 7 years. Obviously, I was working with all these big companies. I also worked with somebody who was the biggest chipset manufacturer before, Chipset Technologies. So they used to service all these big companies. And here I started, me and 3 engineers had started this company called Opti, where we had a better chipset than everybody else. And then I decided, I was running sales and marketing at that point. So I decided that, if I try to go head to head with all my competitors for these big US accounts, I know what the expectation of these big companies are. They're going to say, where's your fab? Where's your technical support? Where is your Where are the specs for all your chips? What is your roadmap for the future? How are you going to support me when I require 10 million chips a month or whatever? How much money do you have in the bank? I had less than $1 million in the bank, just from angel money. So I knew that pretty much impossible to win, even with a better product, at the biggest market, which was the US. So I said, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to sell a single chip in the US market. I'm just going to be out of the US market, even though it's the biggest market. So with TiE, we decided that we were not going to sell in the US market, but we were going to dominate, we were going to create a new market, and we were going to dominate that new market, and then come back and take over the US market. So that was my strategy, and it worked like a charm, as you'll see, because 4 years later, we had become the world's largest chipset company, and an amazingly profitable company, and all the big companies in the US were using our product 4 years later. And 1 out of every 4 personal computers used our chipsets. So, the strategy just worked like a charm. But, I basically went global from day one. And in fact, global and excluding my biggest market. And that is something that needs to be assessed in coffee. With Selectica, when I started Selectica, we also had big competitors already because we were a few years late. And they already had, big teams, lots of money, etc. And so I said, yeah, I had a brilliant engineer working for me, my co-founder, and I said, how are we going to compete with these guys? They're already there, they've got a reputation, etc. So I said, I need to do something that these guys are not doing. And that something that they were not doing was, they were so successful there that they prefer to hire people locally. So they were hiring American, software developers and American customer support engineers and American customization engineers and IT engineers and so on. So I said, what I really need to do is take advantage of India and have 400, 500 IT engineers here because my cost is 150 to 110 for an engineer. And I can do things that provide services to customers that these other companies which are US based with US engineers will not be able to provide. So with Selectica, I built a massive technical team here and IT team right from day one, before anybody else. With Dino, we were doing video streaming. Completely saturated market in the US, right? I mean, Google was there with YouTube, and Justin TV was there, and it's a very, if you are late, 4 or 5 years late in the market, the US market saturates very fast because there are so many entrepreneurs and so many big companies that are just hungry for market niches, and they just jump into it and they saturate it, and because it's a very open market, it's an open field that it's very easy for anybody to enter the market if you've got a better product, better solution, and so on. But it's tough to stay there because of the competition and so on. So, with the online video market, we were about 4 or 5 years behind everybody else. So it was totally saturated. And so, here after 2 or 3 years, finally, the way we broke in was to find the ethnic diaspora market, which is a global market, and with ethnic content which is globally developed. And so we used global market there. So,
I have a question.
sure.
So, looking at the first case, the case of Oki,
Mm.
where you took a call that those biggest market, you were aware of it.
Yeah.
US. So, did you take a while, you go out there and try and then decided that, okay, now let me concentrate on the eastern market, become a leader there, and then perhaps come back and then, was it a window or this was just like a?
From day one. And the reason we did it from day one is because I worked at Intel and then I worked at Chipset Technology, which was the biggest chipset supplier. And then we were spin out. Me and 3 engineers from Chips left it to start a competing company to Chips and to all the Western Digital, Intel, TiE, all these guys. So in a sense, you know, here I knew everything that was going on about the market and about product development and everything. But it's not easy if you're starting against these giants to break in. So the question is, how do you do it? And, you know, one would be, so there were, believe it or not, there were like almost 20, 30 other startups that all happened at the same time. And all the other guys went after the US customers, and a year and a half later or 2 years later, they wiped out.
So perhaps you and your team had already been evaluating vendors of that nature who's trying to supply large companies. You are aware of the challenges that they.
No, I knew the market, I knew the customer expectations.
Yeah.
I knew everything. So I did not waste my time, money, resources in order to, but I did things that will enable the Far East to become a giant in the PC market. And I'll talk about that in a minute. So let's talk about that.
Raj, one question.
Yeah.
So, Dino,
Yeah.
when did you give up on it? How much time did you give the business?
Yeah.
How do you find
Yeah,
it?
so I'll go more into detail, but basically, we spent about $15 million over about 6 years. Then we gave up. Yeah. Okay, so with Opti, I talked about how I developed a whole new market and made my customers successful. So basically, what I did was I gave time to market advantage to this new set of customers, or people who wanted to break it